I think it's working.
Hey, there's Noah. There's Melanie. All right. Brilliant. Okay, so I just posted it like everywhere I could think of. I put it in the event, I put it on the page, and I put it on my personal page as well. Anyway, I hope if anyone else is planning on joining us, that they'll find it. But if they're not, we're recording now. Yay! So all of you that are listening in on recording, we took a while to figure this out. But anyway, I took a while to figure it out. You guys are just fine. So hello, welcome.
Thank you. Hi.
How are you guys?
Well, and you?
You're good. I'm good. I'm good. So I'll take this screen sharing thing off for now. Stop. There we go. So we do have a text box thing available. So if you go over to the left side of your screen, you should see like a little blue box with some lines in it called chat. So you can open that up and you can put it, it'll just kind of show up on the right side of your screen. And so you can there type in any questions that you have along the way, and I'll be sure to try and address those for you as it happens. Since we're only 3 right now on the call, why don't you introduce yourself? So you can just say who you are, where you're from, and any little quick tidbit that you'd like to share with each other. Something interesting about yourselves. Because everything you have to say is interesting, by the way. Everything.
Of course. Okay, I guess I'll start. My name is Melanie, Melanie Grandin. I live in Longueuil, and I am, by profession, I'm a writer, editor, translator, and I love yoga and self-healing and everything that has to do with that. So always interested in stuff like that.
Did you complete a teacher training?
I did with I did with Shizu, with Yasmin.
Okay, yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So yeah.
Welcome.
Thank you.
My name is Nuha Abdelhamid, and I am originally from Sudan, but right now I live in Montreal. And something about me, I really, really like strawberries. That counts.
That does absolutely count. You better believe it. I love strawberries. Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for introducing yourselves. So we can begin now. So thank you so much for joining in on this. So today the conversation is around our moon cycles, our feminine cycles, and how there are actually 4 phases to that I think the majority of us women are not fully familiar with. We have heard of a few things over the years, but not fully embodied what that means for us in our day-to-day lives. So today it's about learning about that from the perspective of what you can do with that in your day-to-day life, and how that can really help us. It's also something that I cover during the Sister Circles. So over the 8 weeks that we're in Sister Circle, we go through the 4 phases twice. So we go through it once and then a second time. The first time we go through it, it's sort of from a textbook perspective. It's like, okay, well, this is phase 1 and this is phase 2, and we talk about it. And as we're doing that, we each start to explore inside of ourselves, where am I actually at in my own cycle? And how does this conversation either resonate or not with how I'm feeling today? So just already starting to see that there might be a difference between where we're actually at when we're talking about something else. So for example, we might start the process talking about the menstrual phase, and you're way up high in your ovulation phase, and you're going, yeah, I don't feel like that at all right now. It's like, well, you're not supposed to, because you're in your menstruation phase. You're in your ovulation phase, not menstruation. We do have a little mission, I call it a mission, like a little challenge that we do every week as well. And we have a private Facebook group where we go in and we share how that's been going. So those first 4 weeks, we may or may not be in sync with the content that we're covering and the mission that's been prescribed. And we kind of just get to explore whether or not those missions really feel like they are in alignment with what feels best and natural for us at that time. And then in the second half, now we have had a month to sort of observe ourselves and see where we are within our cycle. And we can take those missions again and apply them in sync with where we're actually at. So that's sort of what we do with that. So what I wanted to cover today was a little bit more about what is this conversation about cycles and what does it really mean? So first things first, we live in a man's world. Just straight up, we do. We live in a man's world. And aside from all of the sort of very popular conversation around what that means these days, we talk about it quite a lot. At least I see that a lot in my circles on social media and in the news and whatnot. We're seeing a lot of this talk about the whole dominance of men and how our world is sort of built up by that, and certain oppressions that happen with women. Outside of that conversation, just generally speaking, we live in a man's world. And what do I mean by that? So when we're talking about this cycle that women have, we're talking about a hormonal cycle. So if we were to talk about the men's hormonal cycle, so for men, they have a hormonal cycle that lasts 24 hours. So what does that mean? That means that provided external factors are the same. So external factors could include diet, sleep, stress, things like that. Okay, all of those external factors. If everything else is status quo, a man can quite reasonably expect that he will wake up and feel the same every day. That is basically what a man can expect, because his hormonal cycle refreshes itself every 24 hours. Women, on the other hand, of course, because we like to be different, right? Our hormonal cycle takes approximately 28 days. So this expectation that we would wake up and feel the same every day, even though all the external factors are the same, is not realistic. It just isn't. It doesn't make any sense, in fact, because there are, many hormones fluctuating through our systems. I wish I could get a list. I should look that one up. Like, how many actual hormones are there? There must be like 100 or 200 or 400 hormones that come into our body and fluctuate in different ways. Some of them are in reaction to things that happen outside of our bodies, and some of them are inside of our bodies, just keeping things chugging forward. But all of those hormones are in constant fluctuation. When we're talking about the reproductive hormones, the sexual hormones, those are the ones that have that 28 approximate day cycle. And I put a lot of emphasis on the 28-day being approximate, because I happen to be one of those women that doesn't have a 28-day cycle. Mine fluctuates from anywhere between 23 and 34 days long. So that can add to some confusion for some women. It's like, oh, I'm trying to anticipate things, and it's hard to anticipate things, right? So, which, actually came up very recently during Sister Circle. I sort of shared how I had thought I had figured some stuff out, and I still hadn't. My body just, it likes to throw me a curveball now and again. So that's what I mean by how women are living in a man's world. We are living in a society that has been built up, and this isn't to say that anything's wrong with that. It just is. We live in a society that has been built up with the expectation and the understanding that each human being should wake up and basically be the same person every single day. Whereas 50% of our population does not actually feel that way every single day. And this is outside of other conversations, dealing with mental health and all of that kind of stuff as well. Clearly, those things are a whole other conversation. But at least it's just at the core of human beings, male, female. Some can expect to wake up every day feeling the same, and the other half can't. And that's what the reality is. So a lot of the systems that we have in this world are built up around that expectations. Things like the 9 to 5, Monday to Friday work week. Things like, and whether or not you have that job that actually goes 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, we're all affected by it. Because let's say you don't have that schedule, you still know that you can only go to a government office, let's say, during those hours or whatever, right? So our world is built up with certain patterns in place that respect this expectation of that consistency from day to day. And this is extremely challenging for us as women, because we don't even fully realize that we are going against the grain, trying to fit into that mold, trying to fit into that mold, trying to fit into that mold. Instead, what I see happens for the majority of us is that when we're not feeling the way we think we should be feeling, that we beat ourselves up about it and we try to push through and make it happen anyway. And it's just like, you start looking at it from that perspective, it starts to become sort of obvious that, okay, hold on, something's off here, something's a little bit wrong with this. So this is why I talk about this conversation being an opportunity to harness our own power. So what do I mean by harnessing our own power? If we were to think about what power is, it can look like many different things. So power could look like vulnerability. Power could look like awakened awareness. Power could look like getting shit done. It could it could look like problem solving, like brainstorming, like communication, like strategy. Power can actually look like many different things. There are masculine forms of power, and then there are more feminine forms of power. So the getting shit done and the strategy could be considered to be more masculine. The introspection and intuition and vulnerability could be considered more feminine. The fact of the matter is that all of us, men and women, experience both of these things. So even though an attribute could be categorized as masculine or feminine, we all have both masculine and feminine attributes inside of ourselves that we could tap into if only we better understood when they are available to us. So that's what I mean by tapping into the power, harnessing a power of these cycles as we start to better understand where we are upping and downing and flipping around in circles, and just kind of like moving with that, being with that flow and that shift and that constant evolution inside of ourselves. Do you guys have any questions up until this point?
I do.
Yes, please.
No, I was just wondering, because I was listening to you talk about how cycles, I mean, you talk about 28 days, but some cycles can vary and all that. And I was wondering if you consider or take into account menopause, like, because that changes everything as well, right? Or perimenopause. I'm just asking because I'm starting to wonder if I'm starting my perimenopause. So I'm kind of like, and which is also why I'm interested in this, because maybe I need to pay more attention to what's going on and in that level. So go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's a perfectly beautiful question. And thank you for reminding me, because I did want to address that. So as women, whether we are prepubescent or perimenopausal, we are still women in a body that has this type of pattern and cycle. It is hardwired into us. Now, obviously, it's going to look and feel a little different depending on the stage of life that we are in. So prepubescent women, perimenopausal women, pregnant women, women that have had a hysterectomy, women that haven't had a period in years, all of it counts. So even though we're looking at it, it's kind of why I prefer calling it the moon cycle as opposed to the menstrual cycle, because the moment you say menstrual cycle, people automatically think, well, it's because I'm menstruating. Well, what if you're not menstruating? What happens then? Well, the moon is always there, and the moon actually does still have its effect on us. So one thing I wanted to bring up was how we can use the moon to help guide us through what's going on here. So for someone who isn't menstruating, it can be a little bit harder to pinpoint where exactly within this 28-day cycle they are. And that's when we can look to the moon. We can look to the sky for that. So new moon would be akin to the menstrual cycle, and the full moon would be akin to the ovulation cycle. So there are 4 phases, but those are the 2 bookends of it, and then we have something between them as well. So that would be one way that a woman could explore that and see where she's at and what she's experiencing in relation to that. One thing that I also recently learned, which I thought was really, really fascinating, was that for some women, it's the opposite. Some women experience that they feel more as though they are in an ovulatory phase during the new moon and a menstrual phase during the full moon. So again, it really turns down to each individual woman, but we are definitely in sync with the moon. And one thing that actually came up in our this recent sister circle that just completed was that those of us who did menstruate were noticing that we were still being affected by the moon. So for example, this week was the new moon. I think on Wednesday of this week we had the new moon, and that would be normally considered the menstrual phase, even though I have been moving into the ovulatory phase. And I kind of went, yeah, but honestly, I'm feeling much more menstrual right now. You know, so it's an interesting consideration. And so therefore this conversation does include all women at all stages, no matter what their experience. It's just a question of better understanding for each and every one of us exactly how we can start to pinpoint where we are along the path. Does that answer your question, Melanie? Okay.
Absolutely. Sorry, I'm muted.
No, it's okay. It's good.
Yeah,
all right. Thank you. Thank you for asking that, because that was an important point here. It's actually right here on my notes. I just didn't skip over it. So thank you. Good. All right. So this 28-day cycle that we're talking about is basically talking about, it's all under the pretense of making a baby. And again, that can be one of those things where you get some people rolling their eyes. Because I personally have a lot of friends that are not interested in making babies. You know, it's sort of a new wave of like feminine power where women are making that choice that, you know what, I'm not doing what everyone thinks I should do and I'm not having a baby. The problem is our body still expects every single month that it could make a baby. Right? So that's what's happening, right? Is that generally speaking, the female body is just at its organic essence there to make babies. That's the whole point. So what's happening during these hormonal cycles is that there is a period where the body is preparing itself in order to conceive. And when it does not conceive, it is then preparing itself to grieve that. Right? So we can look at it from really that perspective, that there is a preparation and excitement and anticipation, and then a grieving process. Right? So that is what is happening there. Good. So I'm going to go back into the screen share here. I don't think you can see my face while I screen share, but we will try this out anyway. Do you guys see that slide?
Yes.
I see
Yeah.
the first one, yeah.
Yeah. And do you see me as well? I don't think so. Right?
No.
Okay, cool. Whatever. Whatever. All right, cool. So we go into our first phase. So some people start with menstruation, and some people start with the next phase. I like to start with the menstruation just because for awareness purposes, this is the one that we all know very, very, very intimately. We know exactly what this is. This started when we were teenagers, maybe even younger. We started bleeding once a month. So the menstrual phase, this is a time that is deeply instinctual. It can last anywhere between 4 and 7 days. I mean, that's textbook. My period lasts more like 2 or 3 days. I know some women that they're closer to 10. You know, all of these phases are really sort of individual to the woman. This is a time of deep insight, intuition, self-reflection, and inspired change. So this is what I meant by how there are different types of power. If we're saying that this is a time of deep insight, intuition, self-reflection, and inspired change, this means that this is time to hunker down, be on your own, and think about shit. This is time to pull out your journal. This is time to be with your own thoughts. And what's interesting is this is also the time when we know that we can probably all relate to this on some level. You start sort of questioning everything in your life. Am I in the right career? Am I at the right job? Am I with the right partner? You know, like everything kind of goes up for debate at varying degrees each month. Obviously, I'd like to think that we're not all actually really considering throwing our entire lives out the window every month, but that energy is still in it, right? Like we're kind of going, I don't know if I can live with this anymore. Right? So this is what happens during the menstruation phase. So this is when we're really in a place where we are really identifying any problems that we experience in our lives. This is also the time when we go back to this idea of this is when we're making a baby. Well, you know what? When you're menstruating, you're not making a baby. So your body is in mourning. It is grieving at this time. This is also, we can even take these 4 phases and link them up with the 4 seasons. So this would be like winter. This would be like hunkering down, getting cozy, self-care, nurturing yourself, getting extra rest, getting extra sleep. All right, so I'll just read the slide. We know this time, it's when we bleed. We feel raw, tired, and emotional. We know cramps, headaches, food cravings, and bloating. But do we know how to harness the energy of this time? Your body is tired and complaining for a reason. It needs rest and slower movement. So when I say your body is tired and complaining for a reason, I feel like that is a little part that I need to highlight because I know many women that feel that they must, on some level, power through this. That they've got to sort of force themselves to keep up with whatever they were doing yesterday and last week and the month before. Like they got to keep up. But your body needs you to slow down. It really does. And the moment that we can embrace that, it gets a little easier. So your body is tired and complaining for a reason. This is the best time for you to reflect on where you are, where you're going, and if you feel in alignment with your highest values. This is one of the things that makes us as women so insanely powerful and interesting, is that we quite regularly have an opportunity to course correct, to say, hold on, this isn't working. It's time to change. I got to tweak it. I got to shift it. I got to turn the boat around. We do this regularly. We don't just go forward. We have the opportunity once a month to sit down and go, let me stop and think about this. Your instincts are running high, showing you the way forward. So take some time, journal, and enter into deep self-reflection. So this is like the winter, the nighttime, the slow moment. This is also only just a few days. It doesn't need much from us. We don't need to slow down, stop the show for the entire month or even for an entire week, but maybe for a couple of days. And the more that we pay close attention to our cycles, the more that we also can recognize that that energy really can come to either a peak or a dip at a specific moment. So I know for myself that the first day of menstruation is very much like this. But then even after that, the moment I'm still bleeding for a couple more days, but I've already started to pull out of that energy. So if we can take that time to really respect where we're at, we might even realize, just like, when you say how much you love yoga and how much comes from that lesson of yoga, it's the same thing. It's temporary. This sensation that we're having right now will pass. And the reason that it persists is because we resist it, right? So that's what comes up for me when I think about how, okay, it's time to slow down. It's time to, block things off and get cocooned in and journal and meditate and reflect. Really, maybe you only need a day to do that. Yeah, good. So the next phase is our follicular phase. So the moment that you stop menstruating, most of us feel better, right? It's like, okay, there's like a little sense of relief there. Your energy is rising, you're feeling motivated and mentally sharp. This is a time for new beginnings, creativity, and inspiration. So our follicular phase is 7 to 10 days long, again, very individual. And it's really a time for adventure. We have been in our cave. We have been sort of, I don't want to say licking our wounds because that sounds like we've been injured, but we've been really taking care of ourselves. And then it's like just coming into spring, coming outside, coming into that energy of newness, of new beginnings, of sort of a really creative time, in fact. So creativity and ideas are surging through you. This is an ideal time to solve problems, try new things, and reach out beyond your comfort zone. I like to think of this time, so if the menstrual phase was the moment when we were identifying problems, then our follicular phase is the time when we are getting creative, finding solutions. So all we're doing now is brainstorming. We are starting to explore possible solutions to the problem that we have just identified a week earlier. You're also feeling social again, and you're feeling ready to take on a challenge. So this is a great time to take on new projects. Sometimes we feel a little bit restless during this time, like we really got to get outside. It's important to honor that. And we can even plan for it, knowing that, okay, well, once my period is done, now it's time to go and join that networking group or join that yoga class or try that exciting thing that I've been thinking about trying forever. This is the time to really get into that because your energy is there, your willingness is there, your desire is there with you. So I say it right there, take up a group fitness class, go to a networking event, or get your big and exciting projects off of the ground. Follicular phase, we think about this idea of how really what your body is trying to do is make a baby. This is the moment, the follicular phase, while the body is preparing to release an egg to be fertilized. It is preparing for that. This is the preparatory phase. So again, also like spring, this is when we plant seeds. This is when we get our hands in the dirt, we get outside, and we start to lay down the foundation, the groundwork for what is to come. So that is our follicular phase. Good. So if at any time you two have any extra questions, feel free to just go ahead and type them into that chat box so that I can answer them as we go. I'm not going to stop every 2 seconds to ask you if you have questions. So just let me know if you do. Just like raising your hand. There we go. So we'll move right away into the third phase. So this is ovulation. And it's funny because I get a little bit hesitant talking about ovulation because I think it's easy to think of menstruation as this part of our cycle is not so good. And then you get into ovulation and go, oh, this is the one that's exciting. But instead, I'd rather see it as it's just different, right? It's just so very different. In fact, one of the women that I follow who talks about all of this, she's actually a health coach specifically around feminine health. She says that her favorite phase is the menstrual phase. And I think that is something that we can learn to embrace the more that we get to know ourselves. But anyway, ovulation. This is the moment when we are in high energy, when we are super social, and we are extremely magnetic. So ovulation is like magnetism. This period lasts 3 to 4 days. The actual moment of ovulation is really only a few hours. So if you were someone who was trying to conceive, you might already know that as you start to learn more and more about optimal times for intercourse to increase your chances to conceive, that there is one day that you're looking for, and really the egg is only available for a few hours, et cetera, et cetera. However, all of that preparatory energy and hormonal stuff that's going on has to build itself up to that moment. So that's why this phase is actually a couple of days long, because it's building, it's bringing you to that moment when, boom, that happy little egg gets released and it's all ready to meet some kind of beautiful stallion of a sperm, right? So that's the whole idea that the body is going for, right? That's what it wants. So your energy is high, you're feeling social, and everyone's drawn to you. So this is part of why this can be a very attractive moment of our cycle. It's a moment when we can easily feel like it's our favorite because everyone likes you when you're ovulating. This interesting little secret. So you know those days when you just feel fabulous, like you're on fire, that those days when your energy is high, your social interaction's easy and flowy, and your thoughts are clear and focused, most likely those days happen for you during your ovulation phase. Not only do you feel fantastic, but those around you enjoy your company and are more drawn to you. You feel attractive and extra social. It's a great time for a date night, a girls' night out, or anything high energy that puts you into a group setting. So if we go back to the idea of nature and this whole idea that really our organic body wants to make babies, you can't make a baby if you're a bitchy woman that no man wants to approach. You know, so part of what starts to happen in a really just sort of organic and human way, animal way, is that we become attractive. We actually do. Obviously your face is the same and all of that, but there's just that little extra glow in your cheeks, that little extra shine in your eyes, and you're more likely to smile and to laugh. And this makes you approachable. This makes you more interesting for other people to be around. So this is also a time when your communication skills are at their highest. Your capacity to interact with others is at its peak for success in that. So if we think of our menstrual phase being one where we're identifying problems and our follicular phase being one where we're coming into a space of finding creative solutions to our problems, ovulation is the time to come out and share it and talk about it, to create the movement. And then finally, our luteal phase. Luteal phase is like focused awareness. This is a long phase, so it's almost one that we could subdivide into 2 phases. It's 10 to 14 days long. And we'll notice quite early on when we start paying close attention to our own cycles and where they're going and how they're fluctuating and moving, we start to notice that they're not like hard and fast, right? It's not like, boom, you end one and you start the other. It doesn't happen in a moment or overnight. it's all very fluid, and it gradually flows from one into the next. And the luteal phase is a spot where we really can see how that happens, because it's long. It's almost 2 weeks long. So as we are coming out of our ovulatory phase, when we're feeling really on fire and we're communicating really well and we're magnetic and people are loving being around us and we're loving being around them, that doesn't just boom stop when you go into luteal. We sort of slowly start to dip down in our energy until eventually we get into a phase that a lot of us know as PMS, premenstrual syndrome. So PMS is actually a syndrome where we're talking about physical things as well as emotional things. But that is one that we're all familiar with, because all of a sudden we haven't actually started our period yet, but we're feeling really shitty. We're feeling not like ourselves. We're feeling cramping and bloating and cravings and irritability and sometimes even insomnia and all kinds of other things, headaches, just like, the body just is complaining at that time. So that all happens in the luteal phase, both the coming down from a high of feeling social and the getting into that deep sort of mucky place where we don't really enjoy being. So it's a long phase, and we can see 2 phases in it. I'll just scan through this. Yeah, so it's a great time for us to take care of stuff. So if we were to think of our bodies again from the perspective of wanting to make a baby, what that would mean is at this time, either the egg is fertilized and it is getting ready to implant itself onto your uterus, or it's not. Thing is, your body does not know if the egg has been fertilized or not. So all your body is doing is preparing for what will hopefully be a fertilized egg attaching to the uterus. That's what your body is doing. It's like, okay, here we are. We've had the egg, we've had the sperm, we think they've met, and we got to get ready. There might be a baby coming. So that energy is the same as what we're experiencing in our lives. We're like, okay, I've identified problems. I've come up with some solutions. I've talked about them with the people that are involved. And right now, I just need to get some shit done. I just need to sit down and tackle this stuff. So whether it be tackling the actual actionable items related to the problems that you're looking to solve in your life, or it simply be doing your laundry, or getting your taxes done, or whatever else, that's when that's when this is happening. So we all know it, right? Like the most of the time we don't want to do certain activities, and then suddenly there's that moment when you're like, you know what? I'm going to clean that closet. You're like, oh, okay, I actually really want to do that thing. Most often that's going to happen during the luteal phase, because that's actually what's happening on a hormonal level. It's saying, okay, let's get some stuff done. We got to do this. We got to pull up our sleeves and do this thing. So luteal phase is really the taking care of business phase. It's also a great time for nesting. As women specifically, we do tend to really feel a connection to our home and what is happening within those walls. So again, that idea of doing the laundry or cleaning out the closet, because the idea is that we're preparing this home base for ourselves, whether that be to celebrate the coming of a child, or it be for the grieving period that is to come if we are not having that child. So that's what's happening for us during that time. So it's time to really respect our dipping energy, to cocoon at home. And it's okay to feel less social, because it's not about anyone else right now. It's really about yourself. So that is our 4 phases. Good. And I just wanted to share a little bit around how I use that information. Before I do that, I'll just open it up one more time. Do you have any questions related to it? Because I kind of ran through them really fast there. So there was a lot of information packed in. You're feeling good, Mel? Nuha, you're okay too?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Good. So how do I use this information? So I think you can already, to some extent, see in your own life how knowing these things could help you, right? Even if we just look at it from the perspective of conflict. Maybe during your menstrual time is not the moment to talk about the stuff that's bugging you. Maybe then is the time to identify exactly what about this is the problem. Take a little bit more time into your follicular phase to figure out what exactly could be done about this. And then once you come into your ovulatory phase, okay, I'm ready to talk about this now. And I'm also going to be well received by the person that I have to talk to. Right. So that's like one really great example of how you can do that. And then after you've had that conversation that went so well, surprising, amazing, right? Then you can together go through the steps to take care of business and get it figured out. So that's one example of how knowing these phases can give us the best opportunity for success and how we're going to apply this into our lives and see things happen with a little bit more grace, a little bit more flow and ease. Other ways in which we can do this, exercise. So we live in a men's world. And when we talk about exercise and fitness, there's rarely, although if we're going into yoga, we'll see it more often. You'll see people talking about yoga to match your menstrual cycles or this or that, like we'll have different things that are in there. But generally speaking, in terms of the bigger, broader perspective of all of this stuff, we have this idea that it's going to be the same all the time. So like, one example is someone goes into the gym and they see a personal trainer and they identify what it is that person's goals are and what their fitness level is today and how they're going to bring them up to that other place and how they're going to achieve the results that they want. And they're given some kind of workout plan that basically will probably repeat itself every week. Whether it be a couple of days, every day, who knows, whatever, but they're going to have some kind of plan, most likely on a weekly basis or even a monthly one, but that month is only because they're anticipating the gains, right? The progress. However, as a woman, I could walk in there. I walked into the gym ready to see a personal trainer while I was in my follicular phase because I was ready for something new. God damn it. I walked in there and I said, give me a plan. I want to make some changes. And they give me that change, and in 2 weeks, all of a sudden my energy's low and I don't want to go to the gym, and it's like, okay, well, how can we find a way to be more respectful of where we actually are at inside of ourselves? So when it comes to exercise, I think instead of seeing, if we look at a week and a lot of exercise regimes, they'll say, of course, you need to have rest days. You need to have time when your body is resting and repairing from the work that it did in your fitness plan. As women, that rest period might not happen specifically from one day to the next. Maybe it actually happens about once a month, every day until the day that you rest. That doesn't make much sense either. But maybe we need to just sort of stretch out our timelines and our views, just kind of make them a bit bigger and a bit wider. So I know for myself, I'm more likely in the follicular phase, ovulatory, and the beginning of my luteal phase to do more powerful workouts. That's when I want to go for a run. That's when I want to do my kickboxing stuff. That's when I want to go and do something more powerful, more higher energy, right? More energy output. And then as I start to slip into that later phase of luteal, now I'm really just focused on yoga. And even then, my yoga practice can start out powerful. And as I get closer and closer to menstruation, I am doing yin, I'm doing restorative, I am just chilling out. And I got to tell you that most recently, for a long time, I would tell myself, and then when menstruation comes, it's going to be just yin, just restorative, nothing else. To be perfectly honest, when I get to that stage, I actually don't do anything physical. I really don't. Maybe a restorative posture when I realize I just need to chill out for a moment. But I really kind of have cut myself a lot of slack because I know it's temporary. I know it's just now, and that, you know what, give it 3 days and I'm going to be ready not only to do yoga again, but I'll be back outside running again. So that is one way that we can take this information and apply it to our day-to-day lives. Other ways that I do this, I actually, because of the nature of the work that I do, so being a life coach, being a yoga teacher, being a massage therapist, I work with people, right? And there's a lot of energy output that can come from that. The majority of the time, I'm totally cool with that energy output because I chose this life. I want to do this work and it actually energizes me and fills me up. And then there are those moments on a personal level, I'm like, oh God, not another client, not another thing, because hey, you know what? I'm actually hormonally feeling less social right now. I'm just not my best self. Now, I can't turn around and say, and therefore I'm going to take several days off of work altogether because this is the real world and I can't once a month have my classes subbed because I have my period. Like that's not realistic, right? It's just not. But what I can do is limit how many activities and appointments that I have. So one of the things that I do is 2 days a month, I block my calendar from receiving extra appointments. So I use an online calendar system so that my clients can go in and book their appointments with me, and they just can't for 2 days. I don't know why. For all they know, I'm booked solid that day. They don't know why they can't see anything. They just know, well, now they do. I'm doing this on this video, but you know. But the fact of the matter is that I just know that I will not be the best for them in that moment. So I limit myself. So one of the experiences I had more recently was that I had blocked my schedule on a day when I still had Sister Circle that evening, because I also knew that if I had had back-to-back appointments all day long, by the time I got to Sister Circle at 7 p.m., I wouldn't be who I wanted to be for them at that moment. By blocking my schedule and focusing on other things, I still worked all day long. I was behind the screen of my computer doing all of my other stuff that I do. But I didn't have that same energy output of being social all day long. And then I was able to come into Circle and be fully present and fully available for them at that time. So these are ways that I am able to incorporate this information into my own schedule. I also, to the best of my ability, try to plan big and public or social activities around when I know that I'm going to be higher. So today, by the way, is my ovulation day. That worked out well. Here I am doing a webinar, right? So it's a perfect opportunity for me to talk and be social and put myself out there. And so this is definitely one way that I do my best. Can't always, because there are so many other factors, but if it's always in the back of our minds that there is a moment when I'm going to be better at this and a moment when I'm going to be better at that, then maybe we can actually design our lives around those moments. So that is the power of our moon cycle. This is what we cover during Sister Circles. Sister Circles are also a time where we share with one another. So in Sister Circle, we share whatever is going on in our lives. So we start a conversation about menstrual cycles, where are we at? Here's our little mission for this week. You know, we go through a little bit of talking about this content, and it gives us the opportunity as a group to discuss what that looks like for us, and any reflections that we've had, any aha moments about that, and oh my God, I never thought about this, or whatever. We also have that little mission that we do every week, so we get to come in and share how that went for us. And just see how each one of us interprets it differently as well. So like if I give you a mission to go out and try something new, for one person, it might be like, well, Nuha said strawberries are really tasty, so I'm gonna go try that. And everyone else is looking at them going, wow, that's your something new? And they're like, yeah, it is. You know, so it's interesting sometimes to see how what's new or how we interpret these things for ourselves can be so different, so different. So that's really fun as well, that we share all of that. We start our conversation out from that, and sometimes it spurs on what we want to share in Sister Circle, and other times we just have something else that's current and in our lives that we want to talk about. So the sharing piece is a little bit like having a little talking stick, and each person gets a chance to talk. Each person gets a chance to share about whatever, anything. Sometimes we even come in, we have no idea. We just start rambling and talking, and then maybe a thought comes together, and sometimes it doesn't. But the idea is that you have your seat. You have your opportunity to be completely heard, completely, without anyone interrupting you, without anyone telling you that you should say something different, or there's no control over it. You get to do your own thing. And in that share, one little piece is we ask. And the ask is, how do we want to receive support? So as women, this is like a big deal, actually. We're not used to asking for what we need in a specific kind of way. In fact, often I see it a lot anyway. A lot of women, I've done it myself many times. The passive aggressive. Does that sound familiar? You know, right? It's like, I don't really know how to ask for what I need, but if I say this little thing on the side, they should know. Right? So, you know, we all have those opportunities to behave that way. When we come into Sister Circle, we learn, different way. And that different way is, how can I be really clear about what it is that I need right now? What is it that I really, really need from my sisters right now? I've got this group of people sitting here listening, hanging on my every word, and all they want to do because they love me and they support me is help. What am I going to ask for? And that can look like many different things. Sometimes it's I just want to be heard. Sometimes it's I'd like to have some ideas, some reflections. Does anybody else know what that feels like? Could be so many different things. So many different things. Yesterday, I was in Circle, and so I participate in circles myself. I don't just give them and host them. I participate in them myself. And the circle that I was in yesterday, I actually took a moment at the end to sort of reflect after all the conversation that happened after my share, and they had all offered me the things that I needed. Before I said I was complete, I took a moment to reflect on if there was anything else I needed. And I realized that what I really needed in that moment was for them to reflect back to me that I'm okay, that I'm doing all right. So like, there are so many different things, and it becomes this exercise in learning ourselves to really identify, what is it I really needed from them right now? Really, what I really needed from them right now wasn't all of the advice and the this and the that. It was actually that I needed them to tell me I'm okay, that I'm doing all right. So this is what happens in Circle. We share, we learn how to ask, and then we learn how to receive. Right? So learning to ask in a funny way is almost the easy part. Right? It's like, okay, that's just a question of identifying the lack, the piece that's missing, and saying, please fill this for me. But can we receive it? And that's another big piece for us as women, is learning how to receive that love, receive that support from one another. And then the best part, after all of that is said and done, you've done your share piece, you've asked for what you wanted, and you received what you needed, you then get to do it for someone else. We give. So sister circles, we share, we ask, we receive, we give. During that time, I also offer a little bit of one-on-one coaching with everyone. So if there is an opportunity for me to kind of dive in with someone on the call and give them some coaching around whatever it is that they shared, provided they are open to that. There's always that question of only giving what someone has asked for when we're in Circle. There is that opportunity to receive a bit of that from me as well. So that's that. Those are our phases and how we can use them and how it applies to being in Sister Circle and what Sister Circle looks like. So I wanted to share with you that for the Sister Circles that are starting on Monday, very exciting. They start on Monday. They go for 8 weeks. And we meet in this kind of format like this. So it's a Google Hangout, not recorded like this one, but Google Hangout, same kind of idea. You click a link, you hop on in. And we do that for 8 weeks for 2 hours each time. And I'm offering you a coupon code at checkout to get $50 off of that Sister Circle. So if you type in MOON and the coupon as a coupon when you're at the checkout, you will get $50 off of this program. So that coupon is going to expire tonight at midnight. So if you are considering joining in Sister Circle, I encourage you to hop on the savings before they expire. There you go. And you can sign up over on my website, christine-gannett.com/circles. I'll also be sure to share a link for that in case anyone missed it. Good. So, do you have any last comments or questions today before we sign off? No? So here's a fun piece. When we're in Sister Circles and we've done our share and we've asked for what we wanted and people all start piping up to give you what you need, at some point we feel like we're done. We've gotten what we need. And then we get to say, I am complete. So if you are feeling complete with me today, I invite you to unmute yourself and we will share with each other. I am complete.
I am complete.
I am complete.
Thank you so very much, ladies.
Thank you, Christine.
You're very welcome. And if you do come up with other questions after the fact, please don't hesitate to reach out. I am here to share the wisdom. I have lots of resources as well on this information. It doesn't just come off the top of my head, right? So.
Sounds good.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mwah. Bye, ladies.
Bye. Oops. Bye.